Previously on Funny Science Fiction.
My wife has informed me that that is the casket when I die.
That's great.
Hello, and welcome to the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
This is the podcast where the memes are made up and the points don't matter. At least that's what our mom told us.
All right, we want to take a moment here to welcome to the show officially Brandon McKinney, host of the High Ground podcast, also known as Darth Chocolate to his YouTube and TikTok followers. So thanks for being on today. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. Love you guys.
Yeah, we're excited about this. So, all right, first up, we need to talk about your professional football career that you had with the Chargers, Ravens, and Colts. What are you enjoying most about retirement from football? No, we're just kidding. We know that's not you.
No, it's but the Ravens are actually my favorite team, so I got Brandon McKinney's jersey because why not? That's cheating. So
do you know how many Brandon McKinneys there are out there? And how hard it was to actually find other information about you than what you provided us? You always try to do a little bit of more background. We weren't stalking. It was a light stalking. But the words Death Star and Star Wars or Darth Chocolate, the only way we found you really was by Darth Chocolate. Those other words were not helpful search tools, but just FYI.
I try to keep a low profile, it's intentional.
Well, you, sir, are succeeding.
Flying under the radar.
Let's just jump right into some questions with the wise and all-powerful Darth Chocolate, whose wisdom will surely challenge the great George Lucas. All right. So, in the bio that you sent us, Brandon, you told us that you said Star Wars is considered fantasy, while Star Trek is considered sci-fi. However, you said the first episode of Star Trek Next Gen is way more fantastical than all of Star Wars put together. So, we'd like you to explain what you meant by that, and then feel free to go ahead and duck because Trekkies are everywhere and they're feisty.
Yeah, it's a hot take. I get it. I get flack for this. And by the way, Star Wars is absolutely a fantasy since there is no Earth in the universe, right? So that's like by definition makes it a fantasy. But I maintain that the only difference is who does the camera follow. If the camera were to follow a random stormtrooper, it would look like sci-fi. That's all I'm saying. Star Wars, we have the Jedi and Sith and the Force and all this stuff, right? But the only thing that really falls into that really fantasy territory is the Force itself, right? The one singular thing. Now, if you watch the first episode of Next Gen, first thing is you meet Q. Need I say more? Then they travel to a space station that magically lets things appear, but it turns out that it's a giant sentient space jellyfish, and the reason things are falling apart is it's lonely. I mean, come on,
Fish need friends too, right?
I'm just saying,
Just saying.
I can believe in the Force versus Q and this giant lonely space jellyfish. They do need love too.
I think that's a fair answer. All right.
Why not Zoidberg?
Why not? So, all right. So out of the 11 live action Star Wars films, many at the time felt that the prequels missed their mark, but they warmed up to them over time. The same reaction has been had to the newer Disney-run sequel films, and time will tell if people warm up to them over time. But let's talk about the two standalones, Rogue One and Solo. Now, personally, I love Rogue One. I think Rogue One is an amazing film, and as a matter of fact, when that movie was over, I rushed straight home, and I put on New Hope because I had to see how the one ended, because that was still fresh in my mind from leaving the movie theater, to see how New Hope began, to see the transition there and the way that they joined those two movies together. But I haven't warmed to Solo yet. I'm trying. I've watched it a few times. Now, however, on TikTok a little while back, you defended Solo. And you talked about why it was worthy of our watching it again. So tell us why Solo is a good movie and why we should watch it again. Now, in all fairness, I need you to keep in mind that my son's middle name is Harrison. and go.
That's a good one. Well, I mean, one of the things I love doing is talking with other people about Star Wars, especially about things that they love. So I will have conversations about these films with individuals where this is their favorite film, and that in and of itself gives you like a whole new perspective on it. But as far as Solo, it's just like the podcast. It's not taking itself too seriously. It's a fun ride. There are some beautiful visuals in it. There are a lot of things that we didn't need. I think that was a big problem. Is it's not a movie that we needed. No one was really asked. We were all asking for Kenobi, but we got this. But I still maintain it's a solid film. It's fun. It's action packed. It's a Star Wars heist, and kind of like those end of the world movies. Where just bad thing after bad thing after bad thing happens, and you're watching these people just barely hanging on by the seat of their pants. I definitely maintain it. It's a fun watch, and it's something you can always throw on. Is it my favorite? No, no, it's not. But it doesn't deserve the hate that it got, and I think it deserves a sequel. I'd watch a Solo too.
Okay, so I think for me the biggest issue that I had is in fact that I am a huge Harrison Ford fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, I just could not get around the casting of this other person playing Han Solo. And I don't know. It's just I really can't put my finger on as to what it was, other than the fact that it wasn't Harrison Ford, probably. And that's probably not fair. I can't remember the actor's name and how to pronounce it, so I'm just going to leave it there. You can Google it. You all know how to look that up. Anyway. But I think that for me, that was probably what the biggest thing was, because I'm, Han Solo. But anyway, all right. So, Team Solo, yay! All right.
It's as if he's human and he ages and needs to retire and stuff.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'd rather. On the other hand, I would rather have that they casted a real actor. I'm glad they didn't CGI try that route on him.
Would you have liked him to do like a more of a Harrison Ford impression as he played the character?
I think it would have been important to tie the two characters together for what we see starting in New Hope to where he's at. I think that's probably the biggest thing for me was that he just didn't have like the same. There was not the swagger. Maybe he hadn't learned how to have the swagger yet, and maybe that comes with the sequel. Solo 2, Electric Boogaloo. Maybe that's where it's at. Maybe that's where he learns it. Part 2. That's right. So I mean, maybe that's where it's at. But there was such a drastic departure, in my opinion, between the way the character was played, and maybe it's just because that person hadn't come of age as of yet. Maybe the character of Han Solo had to grow into who Han Solo was. So I have been a fan of Star Wars games since I can't remember when I wasn't. I remember way back in the days of Super Nintendo when they came out with that side-scrolling Star Wars game. You had to jump on the Jawa machine there and try and go up with Luke Skywalker and all that stuff.
Super Star Wars?
Yes, that was good times. And then Super Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, that was the stuff. All right. I have to say, though, I was particularly impressed with Star Wars Force Unleashed and Force Unleashed 2. And I was hoping that somehow Lucasfilm would figure out a way to get the character of Galen Merrick, a.k.a. Starkiller, onto the big screen with potentially Sam Witwer in the lead role. I thought he did such a great job as Starkiller, as the secret apprentice to Darth Vader in those games. Are you familiar with those at all?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, just making sure. All right.
Sam Witwer is my spirit animal.
Also does a great Darth Maul, by the way.
He's Maul, the Sidious. He does it all.
He's a pretty amazing voice actor. So, do you think that Lucasfilm missed the mark there, not capitalizing on the popularity of those two games? Because there was clearly a fan base asking for not only a third game, but for something more than that. And what do you feel is the next logical step for the movie franchise?
Well, it's a loaded question, right? Because there's a lot of great stuff that came out of Legends. Like myself being huge Legends fan, as I mention, I'm 128 Legends books in. There's a lot of really cool stuff. I do still have to be cognizant that, the Legends universe was never quite canon to begin with. And as much as I love the game and Starkiller, he is crazy overpowered. Like when you play the game on one of the advertisements, he does his where he jumps up, hovers, and does a force burst, and it just disintegrates stormtroopers and stuff. I can't say that they missed the mark, because who would he fight? who in Star Wars could stand up to him? It's fun though. I mean, especially when you got to walk around and punt Jawas and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. I would love to see something come of it. I actually have my own little pitch where we could get maybe a lesser version of that. So yeah, here's me in the where I would say Star Wars to go from here, and I'm going to include where we started with this. So
right.
just follow me. So at the end of Last Jedi, we see Broom Boy, right? This kid, he was like a slave on his planet or whatever. I want Broom Boy to be Starkiller. I want him to
Cool.
have been inspired by seeing these rebels or the Resistance come to his planet, and now he's seeing that he has these powers. He's heard of Luke Skywalker and all these things, and now he wants to stand up and protect people. And then I want the situation where he does a liberation for the other little kids there, and they all escape, but they're all children and they don't know where to go or what to do. And some of them go back. I want him to try to protect one of them from one of their masters or whatnot. And in that moment, he accesses the dark side for the first time and just blows the dude away. And I want that kid to kind of go down this path of okay, well, the only thing that matters is power. And then start finding, Sith things and going down that and starting his own little version of it. And then he would go up against whatever Rey does with the Jedi in the future. That's what I want to see going forward. So
I would watch that. No, seriously, I would watch that. I think
That'd be interesting.
I think it's a good storyline. I really do. Because if you think about the path to it, because then he thinks that only the power is the only thing that's going to protect him and his friends, and he's going to tap into that. And yeah, I think that's a great storyline. Even though he has seen the good of the light side of the Force, he accesses the dark. So,
like Vader, he's light corrupted.
Yeah. All right, Lucasfilms, there you go. That's what you need to do next. Get a hold of Darth Chocolate. He's going to tell you how to write this stuff.
Right?
So, the first thing I thought about, Brandon, when I heard your name, Darth Chocolate, I was like, well, wait a sec. Siths usually have a rule of 2. So who's your counterpart? Right? So is your counterpart perhaps Darth Jar Jar? Have you heard the Darth Jar Jar theory? Have you ever heard of that?
I have, and I love the theory myself. I actually was against the Darth Jar Jar theory until I was preparing for a podcast of my own and was watching some of the behind the scenes footage from the prequels, from Phantom Menace, and George Lucas kept saying over and over again, Jar Jar is the key to all of this. Jar Jar is the key. I'm like, why does he keep saying that? What is he planning?
What is he thinking?
And I don't know. The only thing I could see is what if that was the twist? The character that they made kids fall in love with ends up being the main villain. That'd be a twist on the same scale as I Am Your Father. But yeah, I wish it were true.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I had a what was it, like an 8-foot cardboard cutout of Jar Jar in my room watching over me as I slept. So that would probably freak me out in the end. If no joke, it was like some big like cardboard. It was fun.
But your kids would have trust.
That's probably the nerdiest thing I ever owned was that giant cutout.
You used to go back to bed.
So I don't know if I take part in the thought that he's a Sith, because it doesn't seem like he aligns himself with the religion or organization of the Sith, right? It doesn't seem that way, at least. Maybe he's just really deceptive, like Palpatine times 10. But do you feel perhaps he's using like this sort of drunken fist style force using that enables him that it looks like dumb luck? And who do you think would win in a fight? Drunken fist Darth Jar Jar or Palpatine?
Captain Sparkle Fingers.
I mean that would it's a good question, because it's either he does have like, you know, drunken abilities or is actually using the force. I mean, come on, you trip on a blaster and it keeps shooting people specifically. You know? So either he does have powers, he just doesn't understand them, or he has plot armor. I don't know which is stronger. You know, can Palpatine get through the plot armor?
Yeah. And you know, in thinking about this, you know, when Mace Windu had like he was against Palpatine there on the edge of the building on Coruscant and stuff, and then Palpatine's face all of a sudden changed when he reversed the lightning on him. Well, Palpatine said, what has been hidden has now come to light, or something like that. I forget, or the true form of myself, or whatever. But the point is that Palpatine has been theorized to use some sort of disguise, like forced disguise, to kind of convince everybody that he is a senator, right? Instead. Mm-hmm. And so I'm kind of wondering if Jar Jar is really good at that too, right? Maybe that's something that he's hiding and he's just super deceptive.
Sorry, I'm just having this like mental image of Jar Jar getting electrocuted and then he turns into like Brad Pitt or something. Like, what? I was not expecting that.
And two, they said that from the conspiracy theorists that I've read and have kind of convinced me that I do believe that Jar Jar was originally supposed to be a Sith. And that all comes down to the end of episode 1, where there was so much blowback about Jar Jar.
Yeah.
And that George Lucas had ruined the franchise and he had done this and he had done that. That instead of making, because there's a and I don't know if it's photoshopped or what, but there's a picture floating around the internet of the original title of episode 2, instead of Attack of the Clones, was supposed to be Jar Jar's Revenge, or the Revenge of Jar Jar, or something like that. And supposedly Ahmed Best had posted it, but there's no real way to know if Ahmed Best has done that or not. Also, Ahmed Best, please be a guest.
I've reached out to him.
We're trying. I'm trying. I am going.
I would love that.
TikTok.
Well, he's a new Jedi, Kelleran Beck, on a kids show now.
Yeah,
which I'm just so happy to see like him come back up in the love that he gets now. It's like inspiring.
He deserves it. I mean, he took so much flack for just doing the role that he was assigned.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Which is the man got death threats for doing a role that he was assigned to do. I have never understood that.
And he did it well.
He did.
Yeah.
With the character that he was given, the parameters he was given, the species that he was assigned to play, Jar Jar wasn't the only Gungan that talked that way. They all did. Right. So the hate kind of pushed George Lucas off of that, and he took Jar Jar another way, which is supposedly why in episode 2 there's very little Jar Jar, because there was such blowback about him.
Yeah.
According to the conspiracy theorists that I don't or may not believe in.
I loved Jar Jar. I don't know. That's just me.
I'll be honest. I had to warm up to him over time. Because when I coming from such a strong background of episodes 4, 5, 6, which those were the holy triumvirate of movies when I was a kid. I watch, you know, I often compare them to my marriage, in sickness and health, good times and bad. That's those movies are always there. Okay. Those are my standbys. And so when episode 1 came out, I can't tell you how much giggling there was from me in the line getting ready to walk in. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go watch a new Star Wars movie. Oh, I was so excited. I mean, like literally excited. And then I had such a hard time with it. It took me years to be able to watch episode 1 again and go and see the benefits of that movie and the way that it started setting up for other things.
Mhm.
Because, you know, I think that's the problem with a lot of Star Wars fans. We have blinders on to what we think the universe should be. And so anyway,
Yeah.
I will stop rambling now because I could go on for hours.
No,
So-
I mean, not to take over anything,
No,
but
please do.
it just makes me think. One of the things I love finding out about people is when they got into the fandom, because especially with Star Wars, it's such a generational thing, and your entry point changes everything. You know, like me, my entry point was I came into it around the time that the re-releases were coming out, right? So I didn't have this big gap where there was nothing, and all I've had is these to rewatch, and so they kind of bled, you know, in together. But I also talk to people where the very first thing that they've seen is the Clone Wars, and they got to watch the prequels, having all the extra context given to them by the Clone Wars show. You know, and I just think it's fascinating because now we're going to get a bunch of people where the sequels are their entry point, and they're going to have a huge different view.
True.
Yeah, agreed. Empire for me, by the way. Just
So you've mentioned that on one of your TikToks, you're glad that lightsaber colors don't have the meaning in canon because it tends to complicate things within the Star Wars universe, right? So lightsabers, according to legends, is going to be depending on the Jedi and and his persona and etc. But in canon, it's simply just, you know, colors that, you know, that the Jedis can kind of choose from, essentially. So if you, Mr. Brandon, were to choose a lightsaber color, what would it be? But if the lightsaber color had to choose you, what do you think you'd end up with?
Ooh, all right. So for me, I've always loved anything in the yellow, gold, oranges type area. It's always been my thing ever since playing the Jedi Power Battles on PlayStation. Plo Koon had a yellow lightsaber in that. It was kind of oranges, but it's my favorite character in the whole game. He became my favorite Jedi, still is, and that's the color that I would definitely choose. But you know, considering that these crystals are semi-sentient, you know, and they choose you, you know, I have a feeling I'd end up with a green saber myself.
Okay. So the yellow would indicate it's a Jedi Sentinel who honored his skills of the balance of combat and scholarly pursuits. Right. So now what does the green mean again? I'm forgetting here. I'm looking it up.
In Legends, green was the Jedi Consular.
That's right.
Yeah.
It reflected on the mysteries of the Force and fight the dark side at its heart.
And didn't blue symbolize their ability in combat?
Something like that.
Yeah,
something
it was
like
like
that.
a Guardian or something like that.
Yeah.
Guardian. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jedi who preferred the Force to fight the dark side instead. Nice.
Okay.
Cool. Well, okay. So many know that you like Spider-Man as well, particularly the Spider-Man who's not a teenager in high school. And in addition, you like Star Wars, of course. So if you had to choose between the powers of Spider-Man and that of being a Force user, right? No Spider-Man Force user. Sorry. You had to choose. Which would you choose and why?
No force webs.
That is a tough one because, you know, I mean, obviously the Force gives you some great powers, but spider powers never run out. Your webbing might run out, but you're always super strong, and spider sense would come in very handy in a lot of cases. You know, I would still have to fall to the Jedi. Depending on what skills I was gifted with, it could help me with job interviews and things like that.
Hmm.
You will pay me this much an hour.
I agree. I think there's less of a learning curve. I feel like where the Force, it's almost difficult to use, but Spider-Man actually was the other way around. Like it was hard for him to control when his hand stick to something and etc. So like you'd have to learn all that. So I'd probably choose the Force just because I don't want to go through that whole
Pulling your car door off, and you're like,
yeah.
oh,
That was
You know, spider puberty, I guess.
Yeah. Honey, call the car insurance company. I pulled the door off again.
Great.
Took
Cool.
a lot of cars to figure that one out.
Imagine the deductible.
Although it'd make parallel parking really easy. You just kind of pick it up and just walk it
hang your
in.
car from a lamppost.
Yeah, there you go.
So, Ben, I really love your passion and your enthusiasm for Star Wars. I was watching a lot of your broadcasts. Now, what are some of your other favorite sci-fi series, and how did you get started down the dark path of Star Wars originally?
Yeah, so I mean absolutely love Firefly. I do love Star Trek. Although I don't know why I've never watched Deep Space Nine, and I know I need to, and I'm supposed to. So I'm sorry.
won't tell. We
I'm
won't.
sorry.
We heard nothing.
We can cut that out.
Down, Trekkies. Down. Leave the man alone. Down, Trekkies.
I've always been a big comic guy on both Marvel and DC, as well as there's a lot of awesome things that are not part of those two ecos. Like I love Exo Manowar. He's so freaking cool and underrated. Addition to that, I'm a big anime fan. I don't know if
Nice.
my shirt
Okay.
says anything, but yeah, I've been part of geek culture since as far as I can remember. It's what I've always gravitated to, and it all started with my mom was a closet geek. My dad, on the other hand, was like a cool guy, kind of jock. Grew up playing basketball, playing music, and all this stuff. And then once I got home, I grabbed my mom's VHS tape of Empire Strikes Back and just watched that over and over again. So I kind of grew up in both camps.
Empire's a good gateway drug.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I listen to a lot of the Star Wars novels about now it's no longer canon, but I love the stories about Luke and Mara Jade. And I was kind of disappointed when they didn't bring Mara Jade into the sequels because she was a very popular character. Did you ever read any of those novels? I assume from what I saw about you that you were into those.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole, because they actually plan to get married on the Thrawn duology, right? Visions of the Past and Spectres of the Future, or
Yeah, it's been a long time since I read them, but yeah.
As well as, I mean, one of my favorites, and no one ever talks about this, but the book Allegiance, which is like a bunch of stormtroopers that defect, and they ended up teaming up with Mara Jade, and then they have another book. Yeah, I did love the character. Rumor has it that George Lucas always hated the character. But I don't know. I mean, we still may find something yet, because kind of the ownership with that is really weird, right?
Yeah.
Like Timothy Zahn now currently works for it, and he's brought Thrawn back into canon, right? And I don't see a reason why we couldn't do that, because I'm pretty sure it was Zahn that created Mara Jade as well. Okay. And even though none of that is in the sequels, we also have to remember that each trilogy is it's grandparents, parents, kids, right? So we still haven't seen them in their prime in a film, right? So she could still enter. There was still a large gap between those two, where someone like her could pop back into it.
Yeah, to me, it's just kind of disappointing when Luke's marriage was effectively annulled by Mickey Mouse, and Luke's son Ben was given to Han and Leia in place of Jaina, Jason, and Anakin. It was just like this whole thing was shuffled. But I got a question, and throw this out there. Despite all these things, in your opinion, how will Ben and Rey handle the attack by the Yuuzhan Vong when it finally comes?
Oh, they're screwed. Galaxy.
No, nobody's ready for any of that.
Like, you better hope the Chiss ascendancy like pops in or something
Right.
like that. But no, I definitely get what you're saying though, because Jaina is my favorite like Star Wars character. Especially the legacy of the Force, like Invincible and stuff, where she trains with Boba Fett. But I will say, we have close to 70 novels in canon now, and the quality is really high on just about all of them. So,
just as a side point, any of our listeners who aren't familiar with Yuuzhan Vong, they were a sentient species that invaded the galaxy and nearly destroyed the New Republic in the novel. So I just want to bring people up, because not everybody's is this deep into the Star Wars stuff.
The legends, yeah.
also,
I do
they
love
are
the fact-
disgusting.
Yes,
Yeah.
they don't even show up in the Force. They can't even detect them, which is kind of an interesting twist.
I do love the fact that there was zero hesitation. What do you think that happened? Oh, they're screwed.
Yeah.
They're done. Yeah, they're done.
So, of course, the theme of our whole podcast and our Facebook group is humor in science fiction. And I'm old, okay? I remember a world before Star Wars. Right?
Old.
I know, it's hard to believe. I was a junior in high school when the first one came out. And so I'm a big fan of the original trilogy, obviously, because it was my first one. And it was really funny. R2, C3PO kind of had this whole old school Laurel and Hardy thing going on. It was really fun. Han and Leia, the zingers that they had back and forth, just constantly entertaining. And even Vader, when he said apology accepted, really gave his character a depth and humor, this really dark humor that I didn't see done successfully in the prequels and the sequels. I mean, they made attempts at humor, and most of them kind of failed, or they were so obvious. Some people called them cringeworthy. But my opinion, of course, is that it's the humor of the original series that puts it ahead of the prequels and the sequels. So, question for you is, what role do you feel humor plays in the success of Star Wars series overall?
Oh, it's extremely important, because it just adds levity to these dark stories,
Yeah.
When Star Wars came out, it's episode 4, right, is Star Wars, and it's just really simple story of black and white. There's good and there's evil. We're the good guys, we get the bad guys. The good guy, he's dressed in all white. The bad guy, he's dressed in all black.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then you move forward to Empire Strikes Back, and the good guy, when Luke, he's like impatient and stuff, he fails his test, and you can see he's could go down the path of becoming a bad guy. The
Right.
good guys training him, turns out that they were lying to him about who the bad guy was, and the bad guy used to be a good guy. And like, it gets really convoluted. But in some of those darker moments, like, I still laugh hysterically every time I watch Yoda when they first meet.
Yeah.
And he's just like picking up stuff and like trying to eat his food, and
Yeah,
How do you get so big?
he's hitting R2 with the stick.
Well, and another thing for me is when we saw that there was no internet, there was no way to look up any other information. All we had was the movie to go on. And I remember having discussions at length about whether Darth was actually Luke's father or not. We had arguments. We went on for hours back and forth. Well, he couldn't be his father because of this. Well, he must be his father because, and so I kind of missed that. And the internet has made us so jaded and so oversaturated with information. It doesn't allow you the space to use your imagination and have some fun with some of the world, because it's become so developed. and
Mhm.
it was so raw and so fresh
Mm.
back then.
Yeah,
And-
and not to mention the humor just changes over time. I
Right.
mean, I remember, watching Monty Python and the Holy Grail and laughing
Mhm.
hysterically. If that came out today, I don't think it would work.
No.
Yeah.
No, probably not.
I
Yeah.
don't
My wife
Probably
doesn't
not.
get it, so.
know.
I don't think my wife has made it through Awake a single time. She's
Yeah.
always fallen asleep. Every single time I put that movie on, she's fallen asleep.
Right.
FYI, I just thought I would note here that the appearance of Yoda as a Muppet actually proves that Star Wars and the Muppets are interconnected.
They're-
They're in the
they're
same universe.
It's a strong, yeah, the Muppets are part of the Star Wars universe. And, yeah,
Here we go again.
I mean, this is the argument that comes up every time we have one of these shows.
Hold on, I'm gonna go find my
Gonzo
iPad. I'll be back in a
is-
couple minutes.
Gonzo, we found out, is an alien. So, anyway.
I'm just waiting for someone to bust out in Rainbow Connection, but sung as Yoda.
I love it.
Well, Yoda's Frank Oz.
One-
Frank Oz,
Yeah.
Piggy.
One day, find it, we will. Connection of the rainbow.
Somebody needs to do that.
I
right?
love it.
I almost spit my water
someone
out.
make it. So,
All right.
anyone watching this, make that song, please.
Yeah.
Like me.
Somebody
I don't have time.
Well, we got one more question from our admin, Deb. And she, of course, agrees that humor is important. And she goes on to, to Star Wars in general, but she goes on to cite the example of Candace Payne, AKA Chewbacca Mom, who took a mask and infected us with her personal joy and laughter.
Mm-hmm.
And it just become this huge phenomenon, this internet sensation of just a woman having fun with a Star Wars toy. And I think that is just beautiful. And it kind of talks about the effect of just fun things. So Deb was wondering about you. Do you have any masks that make you laugh or that you enjoy with Star Wars? If so, which ones and what mask would resonate with you, do you think?
Well, for me, masks in Star Wars are usually signify terror.
Yeah, that's right. Those are the bars.
But I have the opposite relationship with that, where I remember watching Force Awakens for the first time in theaters, and Kylo Ren is this big imposing figure, and he's just like seems ultra powerful, and then he took off his mask, and I was like, I don't know. To me, he looked like a wet dog, but a lot of people liked him, so that's cool. But yeah, for me, it's the opposite. But the thing I think about that really resonates with me in regards to Chewbacca Mom is that I feel like the more connected like society gets through the internet and all these things, it's almost goes back to high school where everyone has to try and be cool. And in high school, the cool kids don't like anything, right? It's cool to not be into anything or to make fun of things or put things down. And when you find someone that genuinely just is happy and genuinely has fun, it's infectious, you know what I mean? Because it's a beacon in the dark now. And I mean, that's how I see it. I apologize for going off task, but
All good.
All good.
I like the answer.
Kit Fisto. I'm sorry. I will say this. The costume for Kit Fisto, especially in Attack of the Clones, where he kills a bunch of the droids and then looks and has a big smile to the camera, that that always
true.
makes me laugh too.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Did he have a Kylo Ren mask or any of those things?
I do. I actually do have
You
a
do?
Kylo Ren mask, and I have a Plo Koon mask somewhere.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
nice. Nice.
That I picked up at Star Wars Celebration 2015. But yeah,
Cool. So now's the time for my favorite segment, the game. We're going to play
Play a game.
The game.
2 truths and a lie. Okay. Now here's the thing. If you win, you get a Red Shirt Widows and Orphans mug. Okay? Saying you gave to the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans.
Highly coveted.
Highly coveted. If you lose, you get your face photoshopped on a meme of our choice, and you get put on our Facebook group of over 80,000 members.
So I win either way. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I was going to ask if you accept those terms, but I guess
sorry.
this is a win.
I'll have to
Okay.
think about it.
Well,
Yeah.
well done, sir.
Bold,
Well
right?
done. So how exactly am I losing? No? Let's go.
There's a man who's comfortable with himself.
I love it. I love it.
All right. Question 1. The character Chewbacca from Star Wars, by the way, just in case you're wondering. Which is the lie? Number 1, he was inspired by George Lucas's dog. Number 2, the name Chewbacca is derived from Slovakian origin, meaning many-haired fellow. Or number 3, Chewbacca's character has a family back home. Which one is the lie?
Ooh, okay. All right. So knowing George Lucas, the one that has the most information behind it would be the lie. So number 2's got to be the lie.
Ooh, I like it. Good job. That is the lie.
Well played,
Wonderful.
sir.
Question 2. What type of currency is not part of Star Wars?
Ooh.
Number 1, Whoopie Whoopie, a gold currency being used by the Hutts on Tatooine, which equals 0.625 Republic credits. Republic credits being used by, of course, the Republic is number 2. And Latinum being used in trade with Camino for the purpose of manufacturing clones.
BB. Whew. Okay. This is a tough one. I mean,
Republic, Whoopie Whoopie, or Latinum?
well, we can already remove Republic credits because Republic credits will do fine. No, they won't.
No, they won't. Love it. Yeah. Okay. Now, Whoopie Whoopie or Latinum?
Okay, so there was a term. So I've never heard of either of them before, but I feel like Whoopie Whoopie may have been a reference in the holiday special because I remember there was like a
holiday
I
special.
don't-
You had to bring that up, didn't you?
All right, podcast done.
I had to make everyone uncomfortable. I mean, especially with
This is where
Chewbacca's
you're not-
father-in-law.
This is
Anyways,
this is where you're not watching Deep Space Nine is going to hurt you.
let's go with Latinum as the lie.
Latinum is the lie. You got it. Gold press Latinum was actually used in Star Trek and often referred to by Quark on Deep Space Nine. So I was like really worried about you with
Awesome.
that question.
Yeah, I was
and you
with
said, I was like,
Okay.
oh no, he's going to get that one
Doesn't watch
wrong.
And if I remember correctly, Whoopie Whoopie is referenced in Phantom Menace when Jar Jar eats the thing hanging from the thing right before the pod races and the other guy.
Oh, okay.
Whoopie whoopie.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got 2 correct. Okay.
Ooh.
One more and you get the cup. All right. Question 3. Spider-Man's parents. They worked as agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and had once saved Wolverine's life. Number 2. They had previously worked as scientists in the same lab that developed the spider that changed Peter Parker into Spider-Man. Number 3. They died in a tragic plane crash. Which one is the lie?
Sorry, it's a trap.
It's a trap.
To quote Admiral Akbar.
Because one is in the 90s Spider-Man animated series. The other is in Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is, the third one is that one. And the second one is in, I think it would also be Amazing Spider-Man 2. But, okay, I'll go with the second one being the lie.
Yep, they were not scientists in the same lab that developed the spider. So you got your third
Okay,
one correct, which
okay,
means you
okay.
won. But now we have the 2 bonus questions. You ready?
Oh, no.
Question-
Sure.
Question 4. What is not true when it comes to Martian the Manhunter?
All right, let's go.
He is severely addicted to Oreos as much as a human gets addicted to heavy narcotics. His nephew was actually more powerful than he was. That's number 2. Number 3, he's a fan of Sailor Moon.
All three of those are highly plausible.
All right. So,
Um,
severely addicted to Oreos. His nephew's more powerful. He's a fan of Sailor Moon. Which one is the lie?
I don't remember his nephew, but he has a niece, McGann, and McGann had a brother in Young Justice. But McGann's a white Martian. The nephew one is not true.
You got it. So actually, his niece, Miss Martian, was a protege of Martian Manhunter, was able to keep her powers more stable than Martian Manhunter, supposedly, and was especially adept at telepathy.
Yes.
Good
Wonderful.
job at
Good
ciphering that
job.
out, because Josh even wore his 1937 Russian sailor shirt to try and throw you off the track.
Sailor Moon deal.
All right, final question. Now, if you get all 5 questions right, we'll also throw in a t-shirt I gave to the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund. Okay. 5th question. In Star Wars, which of the following was not powered by Tabana gas? Most blasters, the Death Star, hyperdrives.
Or Drayton after a bean burrito.
Hey,
Most blasters, the Death Star, or hyperdrives.
Okay, so in Rebels we saw the space whales, I forget what they're called, consume Tabana
don't
gas and jump to hyperspace.
Oh.
So I can see hyperdrives. And on the Death Star, the primary weapon was powered by Kyber, but that doesn't mean that the whole station was. I don't know. But the Empire probably would have annexed Cloud City earlier. I'm gonna go with the Star, just with the Death Star. Death Star. Final answer.
Okay, that is right. The Death Star was powered by a super laser from Hypermeta reactor that used large Kyber crystals, which are the same crystals in lightsabers, to focus the beam. Wonderful.
Well
So
done, bro.
you got all 5 right. I'm
Yeah,
impressed.
that was Hey,
I tried
I
to
said
make
in the
him-
beginning he was going to rival George Lucas.
Yeah, I tried to make him tough, man. So great work. Awesome. So you'll be getting a cup and a t-shirt in the mail. I gave to the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund.
Awesome.
The shirt will look a lot like this, just bigger.
Yeah.
Brandon, it's been our pleasure to have you on today, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But so help people know where to find you. Where's the best places on the internet for people to find Brandon McKinney, Darth Chocolate?
Yeah, so I most of my content currently is on TikTok. I am at Darth Choco on TikTok. That's what's got me started creating content this past May, like 2 days before May 4th is first time I ever created content. But on I plan to build up my Instagram and Facebook at both being Darth.chocolate. And then on YouTube, I am Darth Chocolate. So you
All
can
right.
find me in all those places.
All right, cool. Well, we'll make sure to include all those links in our show description when we post this. And so thank you for being on. This was awesome. We want to thank our listeners as well. Make sure that you go on over to YouTube and check out Darth Chocolate to see Brandon's podcast, The High Ground, on YouTube for some really cool in-depth conversations about some of the various topics we talked about here and some even some even more in-depth conversations than that. So some really cool stuff. And if you have a short attention span, go check out TikTok, and you can see his opinions on things in 60-second bursts. So he's got some really cool stuff there. Now, if for those who are listening or watching, if you want to see more amazing guests like Brandon, because let's give it up for him, Brandon was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Be sure to hit like and subscribe on our content here, and then go over to Brandon's and hit like and subscribe over there too. Okay, so thank you guys, and thank you for being with us today on Funny Science Fiction.
Thank you
was
so
fun.
much. May the force be with you.
We would like to take a moment to talk about the brave men and women who have boldly gone and not returned. We're talking about our beloved Red Shirts. Our show is brought to you by our charity sponsor, the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund. Imagine the comfort you'll give Red Shirt crewman number 9. He'll know that when he puts on the red shirt and gets eaten by the carnivorous alien fungus on Teleprime, 12 minutes into episode 19, that he didn't leave his family destitute and without hope, because the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund has his back, and half of his one good kidney.
That fictional charity, Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund, is connected to a very real charity, and your purchase of the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund merchandise allows us to give 100% of profits sold to the awesome folks over at Wish Upon a Teen. They help kids have a more comfortable stay at hospitals when their stay becomes more extended.
On behalf of the rest of the hosts of Funny Science Fiction, we'd like to thank you for listening to this episode. If you'd like to be a guest on one of our future episodes, please contact us by means of our Facebook group, Funny Science Fiction. You can find us on Twitter or Instagram using the handle @FunnySci-Fi, or you can go to DraytonAllen.com and click the Contact Me link at the bottom of the page. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
Copyright 2020 by Drayton Allen. Original music by Jordan Michaels. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned in this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation of or by Funny Science Fiction or its sponsors. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at DraytonAllen@DraytonAllen.com.